So can I call this regular council meeting of September 30th, 2014 to order? Moved by Councillor Hall, second by Councillor Lang. All in favor? Motion passes. And so 9:07. I got what you got. And a motion for adoption of the agenda. Is there an amendment to the agenda?
No, there isn't, because it's been cancelled.
Oh, okay.
There was only 5 people registered.
Moved by Councillor Hewitt, seconded by Councillor Leithwood. Discussion, we'll call a question. All in favor? Motion passes. Minutes of the regular council meeting of 2014-0909. Moved by Councillor Hewitt, second by Councillor Lang. Discussion, call a question. All in favor? Motion passes. And the SEDS meeting of 2014-0908 be received. Moved by Councillor Leithwood, second by Councillor Lang. Discussion, call a question. All in favor? Motion passes. No delegations. 4A, report from the administrator.
The crew are busy with completing as many planned 2014 projects as time and budget allows before cold weather closes in. City Hall is fairly strongly underway. I do want to convey in the public part of the meeting that we're very grateful to the library staff for their patience and understanding what's going to be a fairly frenetic period of time at the building. I have got a recommendation there for our new Public Arts Committee because the question of what to do with the space left behind by the old fire hall seems to have suddenly become a burning question for many, and I would suggest to Council that that's something that should be given some time to be discussed.
It's an escape park right now. Escape park.
Did you want to talk about White Goat Enterprises?
What's that? No, there's a recommendation there.
I'll move that the question of how to develop or use the space vacated by the old fire hall be referred to the Public Arts Committee for input when it convenes for the first time later this year.
Moved by Councillor Leithwood, second by Councillor Lang. Discussion, call a question. All in favor? Motion passes.
With respect to the Campbell building, White Goat Enterprises has advised that after quite a bit of consideration and further research, the geothermal adaptation project, as quoted, was not possible within current budgetary constraints. There were some fire separation issues that hadn't been previously considered, and it was going to be fairly challenging to do it affordably. I did ask White Goat Enterprises after a chat with Glenn Walker to see if there was an alternative within budget to try and achieve adequate seasonal heating and cooling of the municipal office, courtroom and music store area within the building. Because we do need to try and take some pressure off the existing electrical load in some of the parts of the Campbell building. We do get a lot of breakers thrown on the colder days. So WGE have provided a proposal, basically want to do a split heat pump systems that would also provide air conditioning in the summer. For the figure you see there, about $8,800, it would represent a switch to incrementally heating and cooling improvements for the whole building beyond what we have in the basement. But given the amount of money that would be required to do an extensive job on the rest of the Campbell building, I suspect incrementals really are the only way forward to get there.
Council like to make a motion, or moved by Councillor Hewitt, second by Councillor Lang. Discussion?
The motion read.
Yeah.
So that White Goat Enterprises be authorized to install a split heat pump system on the Campbell building for the cost not exceeding $8,816.05 plus taxes instead of their originally quoted geothermal adaptation project.
Further discussion? Councillor Lang?
We were to install some valves. Some valves were to be replaced replaced on the water system. Did that get done? Do you know?
This was the,
In the radiators, there was some of the valves were not working properly. They either didn't open or didn't close, or I'm just curious if that issue was ever dealt with.
it's been built into some of the work that we've got scheduled for this building, but it doesn't seem to be a. It could help incrementally again, but again, it's something that would take additional resources. One project that Public Works are going to do in-house over the winter, for example, is insulate the geothermal and propane boiler room in the basement. It's pretty cold down there. There's a lot to do.
Councillor Holland?
So is this something that's going to be like, am I reading that this is an incremental installation to the existing system, or is this we adding on some new?
It's essentially an addition. We did talk to the engineer to put the geothermal in, whether this would be a good solution, and he did agree if we didn't have the budgetary capacity to essentially overhaul the rest of the Campbell building to get the ability of the building to heat a little better, that this approach would at least get us some of the way there.
So when you say heat the building a little better, are we talking mechanical work or structural type work?
There's
Building envelope.
there's certain structural work that would need to be done. There's quite a lot of the work that needs to be done is a lot more invasive than we initially thought would be the case. It would have a fairly hefty price tag to make it any better than it is now.
And it's like
In
insulation?
of itself. No, it's basically the distribution system. Because we've got I don't know what the best way to describe it is, we've got a really nice modern heating system in the basement, but it's trying to heat a really old water-based induction system through the entire Campbell building. It's just not, particularly in the colder weather, distributing heat the same efficacy as the propane-based system.
Further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes.
Boundary extension. One additional public notice must appear in the BC Gazette on October 2nd before package can be submitted for ministry consideration. But I'll bring a report with the necessary resolutions for council on October 14th. The certified result of the APP is appended to your agenda. In terms of the cemetery, we have a recommendation there for the volunteers.
I'll move.
Moved by Councillor Holland.
Municipality agrees to sponsorship of their part cemetery volunteers on October 8th. With all council members and partners to attend.
Second by Councillor Hewitt. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes.
Emergency Social Services. The RBCK Emergency Program Coordinator has recommended that the village formally endorse the following appointment of Deb Borso to the position of Emergency Social Services Director for the village of Kaslo.
I'll move.
Moved by Councillor Holland. Second by Councillor Lane. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. On to the fives. 5A.
4B.
Sorry?
Probably should do 4B next. Receive results.
Okay, 4B, I'm sorry.
I'll move that the result of the alternative approval process with respect to the Village of Castle proposed boundary expansion be received.
Moved by Councillor Hewitt. Second to Councillor Leeson. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. Now we're good for the fives? 5A.
I move that the Kootenai Lake Historical Society be invited to attend the committee of the whole finance meeting and the delegation later this month.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Hall, seconded by Councillor Leafwood. Discussion, call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. 5B.
I'll move that the correspondence with respect to recommended improvements at the seniors hall be referred to both the Public Works Foreman and Committee of the Whole Finance.
Moved by Councillor Hewitt, second by Councillor Leafwood. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. 5C.
I'll move that the correspondence with respect to Spruce Street be referred to Committee of the Whole for further discussion.
Moved by Councillor Leafwood, second by Councillor Hewitt. Discussion. You get your hand up, Councillor? Sorry. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. 5D.
I'll move that the correspondence with respect to cemetery marker standards is referred to Committee of the Whole, and further that staff prepare a draft bylaw amendment with respect to a waiver process for families and other parties with headstone or marker plans that are outside of bylaw provisions.
Did you want any comment?
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Leafwood for comment by staff.
Just to bylaw infractions is anyone who visits the cemetery knows with respect to markers is fairly significant. And it's not an area of bylaw that we enforce particularly strongly. We don't and can't regularly monitor activities by individuals at the cemetery. We certainly have a lot of situations where a marker that's not in line with the bylaw will appear over the course of a weekend, and it's not something that staff make a big fuss about, and I don't think it's anything council has ever wanted to make a big fuss about either. However, it does mean that we don't have a way to bring these situations under some degree of control or have a process for it. So, not that I want to bring another bureaucratic layer to this, but if we had a waiver form similarly to what you had for exemptions for noise and so on, at least people have an avenue to let us know what they're doing, and there's a chance to look at it.
Makes sense.
So would that be a motion to receive then?
We already made the resolution. You can vote on it.
Further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. 5E.
I'll move that the village agree in principle to accepting marine blackwater from Kootenai Lake Sustainable Boating Society into its sewer treatment plant pending decisions with respect to fees, charges, and related protocol.
Moved by Councillor Leafwood. Second by Councillor Hall. Discussion. Call the question. Councillor Hall.
Can somebody explain to me who Kootenai Lake Sustainable Boating Society is?
It's a non-profit organization that works on Kootenai Lake. It's one of their big mandates is to try to. One of their issues is they're trying to negotiate or lobby the federal government to make Kootenai Lake a no dumping zone for boats and recreational users. And so they're looking to bring responsibility to the boating public. And so they formed a foundation. The woman who owns the Lake View Grocery down in Curry Creek is the president and chair of whatever of the society. So that's what they're doing, and they're being quite active. They probably have some sort of close relations with the Friends of Kootenai Lake around certain issues, and Kootenai Lake Conservation Program is also forming relationships with them. They'll probably get some. The Kootenai Conservation Program will be an avenue for these guys to get some funding to do more of the work that they're kind of doing. So we're going to preserve the lake environment.
Can somebody explain to me how the sewage makes it into our system?
Yeah, I don't know that part. They're putting in. They're looking to put dump stations on Kootenai Lake, so they have permission to have agreement with Woodbury Resorts to put a dump station there. Regional District, Central Kootenai, Area D is funding it partially. Some of the other area directors are funding it. But one of the conditions with the Regional District of establishing the pop-out station was that they have an agreement, a written agreement with how they were going to dispose of that sewage from there. So they approached the village of Caslo first to see if they could use our system to dispose of the waste that they collect at that pump station.
So it'll be trucked then?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt, did you?
No, that was,
Further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. 5F.
Move that correspondence dated 2014-09-18 from the Lyman Cultural Center and Society be received.
second.
Moved by Councilor Leithwood, seconded by Councilor Hewitt. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. 5G.
I'll move that the Marina Ridge Strata Corporation be given permission to sprinkle during night hours from 2015.
Moved by Councilor Hewitt, seconded by Councilor Leithwood. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes.
Did you have a question?
Well, yeah, I'm just.
Oh, sorry.
Again, I'm wondering why they're asking for our permission. Don't they fall in the same category as everybody else in the community in terms of sprinkling regulations?
They appear to have some degree of uncertainty around the hours in the high summer when they could sprinkle, and they felt that the way our rules were set out left a question over whether they could do it at night.
Well, that is outlined in the bylaws, and not if you, depending on what classification you're in, determines what time of day you're allowed to water. Typically, it's not between 8 and 8 or 6 and 6. I can't remember exactly.
I think the issue was this is a lawn, and people use it during the day, and they thought it would actually be easier on the water system if they did sprinkle it at night.
And that's the bylaw in the bylaw. It says not to water during the day, that you only should be watering at night. So, but whatever.
Okay.
It's fine. If this solves the problem, I'm good with it.
Further discussion? Call a question. All in favor? Motion passes. Okay. Committee reports. Staff report.
We should receive.
Oh, sorry. Communication for information, right? Motion to receive the circulation package.
I'll move.
Moved by Councilor Leithwood, seconded by Councilor Hewitt. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. 7, committee and staff report. Staff report.
Okay. I'm bringing this to you because I've had a visit from a contact from a few property owners in part of town. Again, brought my mind focus to a different part of the zoning bylaw. The C1 waterfront commercial zone, bylaw 1130, differs in the permitted uses from the previous bylaw that preceded it in a manner that forces C1 property owners to rezone if they wish to build a single or two-family dwelling. That's not contrary to the official community plan, but it's certainly become unclear to me the more I ask questions as to whether upzoning of that nature was the intent of predecessor staff at the time. In the past, under the previous zone, you could essentially build a house in the C1 area without any real problems. Now you can't. You have to apply for a reason to R1 or something else because dwelling is not a permitted use. You'll notice that H, there are multiple dwellings subject to regulations in the RM1 zone. That just means multiple dwellings. It doesn't. It's very specific, which means that when someone comes in, unfortunately, I have to tell them if they're just building a single or two-family home, you're going to have to rezone your property. If that wasn't the intention at the time, I'm providing council with some suggestions as to how that might be remedied. I am reluctant to bring another zoning amendment forward so soon after the last one, but it's certainly an issue that you will probably receive letters about in the next few months. It seems to be something certain property owners have only really become aware of now when they put their minds to building a home in the C1 zone. Perhaps we missed the hearing processes back in 2012 or early 2013. I'm not sure what dates were. So there are two options that I'm suggesting in terms of when we choose to do an amendment if council wishes. One option would be to add a single-family dwelling or two-family dwellings in conjunction with another permitted use. That's a fairly standard line in a lot of zoning bylaws for commercial areas and small communities. Or if you want to give maximum flexibility to the C1 area, but essentially you're also completely giving it over potentially to residential use if there's a change in the market conditions, is you could put uses permitted in the R1 zone because that covers everything under residential, subject to respective regulations applicable in that zone. I'm a little leery of doing that just because we don't have a huge abundance of commercial land in Kaslo. If you stay with the more restrictive single-family dwelling or two-family dwelling in conjunction with another permitted use, you're at least allowing it, but you're still making clear this is supposed to be C1, this is supposed to be commercial activity, and it's still regarded as such. But you could go down the other road as well, and just give it optimal flexibility for residential construction.
Councillor Hall.
I'd like to see what the C1 area is. That's,
On the map,
yeah.
that's the Castle Bay area, and essentially a kind of swathe of land around basically the relief around that area. It's a big. It was commercial before under the previous bylaw as well.
So is that border about a highway above the lake, or where's the border? Where's
I believe the highway is the boundary for that. I need to pull the map out for you.
I think it goes both sides,
It
doesn't it?
might be a little bit on both sides. It's pretty close to that. It's essentially a kind of circular area around the Castle Bay. And of course the waters are zoned accordingly too.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but does that include the new subdivision there as well? In that C1? Because they're bordering on, some of those properties border on the lake.
Subdivision area.
Well, we're the big large drive. Is that includes large drive?
I think they're just outside on that side. Some properties may be within it, but yeah, I could pull them out. I could bring them out.
Yeah.
You don't need to do anything on this tonight. I'm just bringing it forward. It may be something that needs further discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to see a map on that a little bit. I don't know, maybe if should we? Is there a referral motion on this or something? What's next? Just a staff.
Could we provide direction to staff then?
To refer to the market committee before?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Hewitt, seconded by Councillor Leithwood. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. Are we finished with this one? I think we're finished with this one. Okay. Board highlights.
I'll move that the September Regional District Board highlights board report be received.
Moved by Councillor Leithwood, seconded by Councillor Hewitt. Discussion. Councillor Hewitt.
So this is a new thing instituted by the new staff?
It seems to be a pretty recent year.
Yeah, because I don't remember having seen one of these before.
No, this is the second one, and they're good.
Yeah.
They're really good.
Oh,
And,
yes.
so there you go.
So I have a verbal committee report here. I spent today in Frankfurt. All in favor? Motion passes. Anyways, the Investor Ready Boot Camp was held in Christina Lake today from 8 o'clock to very interesting because Christina Lake has formed a venture capital corporation in their community in order to attract investors. And this person who gave the workshop was quite interesting in that he is part of the angel investor group in Vancouver related to investors in the United States. So he explained the whole process. So here's the book on it, which I'm still digesting, but it's very interesting where, Christina Lake really felt that there were people in the community that wanted to invest and they wanted a mechanism to do it. And one of the most interesting aspects is that through this investment corporation, you as an investor can get a 30% tax refund on any amount of money that you put in there. And it's not based on your taxes, you just get a check from the provincial government for investing in one of these venture capital corporations. So anyway, I think it's something worth pursuing at a later date, and certainly there was a lot of interest. There was about 25 people from Christina Lake at this workshop, and after I've digested this book, I'll make it available for anybody that wants to look through it. Okay, bylaws. Okay.
I was just going to make a quick verbal
Oh,
on
sorry.
UBCM. One of the better UBCM conferences I've been to, and I've got a written report on stuff at 10. I'll send that in, just you guys can peruse it if you have any detailed questions. But the main thing I want to touch on was what the Ministry of Agriculture is doing, what they're doing in the Pemberton area around agriculture. I was really impressed. It's one of the best things I've done. We actually took us around and visited a lot of small farms, some as small as 2 acres on up to 50, 60 acres. And I was blown away at how much revenue these guys are generating. I mean, there's nobody getting rich or anything, but the viability of these small little farming operations that we're starting to hear more and more about is amazing. And the other thing that I kind of found out here, the tour after reviewing all these great farms, the exposure in Pemberton is brutal. And last winter, their frost in a typical winter, where they have 16 inches of frost. So they've got no direct sunlight from fall, and these farms are looking at from fall solstice until spring solstice, no direct sunlight at all, 16 inches of frost. And they're producing food, great guns. So for me, I got really inspired about what the potential is around in our community, even on smaller parcels of land, even an acre or two, what can be produced for local food production. So I'd like everybody to kind of keep an eye on that and have a great appreciation of what some of the work that's being done by the local food hub now around encouraging people to grow food. It's amazing what you can crank out of a little plot of land. It was really interesting.
Councilor Lane?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up again with UBCM that we attended a number of cabinet meetings with cabinet ministers, and in most cases they were willing to make commitments to us in terms of getting back to us on specific issues. I want to make sure we don't lose track of who said what to whom and when, and I would like the CAO us to provide him with a list of who we spoke to, what the subject matter was, and what was the commitment that was made, and make sure that we get some feedback. Like Director Shadrack and I went to see the Minister of Transportation. We were informed that there's going to be road work on this highway in the next 3 years. This came as a tremendous shock to us. He said, "You're on the list." We said, "Can we see the list?" And he said, "Yes, we were willing to supply the list." So we need to have that documentation in hand. It's not just enough to say, "Yeah, it's okay, guys, we're looking after you." But so anyway, I don't know what the process would be exactly, but I'd like to see that some follow-up done on those meetings, because they really are the nuts and bolts of the whole conference, as far as I'm concerned, and from a business standpoint.
I think that one way to deal with that, and I tried to do it in my action report, was we referred, I can think of 2 or 3, to the CAO. So it was so, okay, this was our ask, and the CAO did an excellent job of preparing the information that the various ministries needed in order to address our concerns, and I was quite satisfied that they are attempting to do that. A good example was the sewer system discussion, where, you know, we were directed from the minister to three of their key people who said, yes, we will definitely follow up on that, and we referred that, well, please contact the CAO because we had the documentation there. But maybe we should set up a process with Neil, maybe in a committee of the whole, where we can review it, because you were taking notes, I was taking notes, and I was kind of listening and taking notes.
Yeah, it's hard to get that
It's
right.
hard to really, what was the action item? And so I think what we could do is review our notes and agree on what we thought the action items were. But specifically, what I found really rewarding was the work that Neil had put into the asks. This is what we asked for. And I think that would be the way to say, yes, follow up on that ask.
So can this go on the next committee of the whole as an agenda item then, that we review?
Well, yeah, we don't know what the agenda looks like. I think we referred several things already tonight, right? Is it?
I could put the briefs that you went down with onto that agenda.
Well, why don't you review the briefs and see what more information you would need to follow up on the asks.
Because I think we've individually have, I know you have spoken to Neil after a couple of sessions, and I spoke to you as well. So I think the feedback has sort of come back piecemeal, but yeah, it would be good to, even if you just each did a short one on just that segment of those meetings. Because I did feel that this seemed to be the most productive year as far as ministers' meetings, and I don't know whether it was, you know, the quality of the briefs that we had with specific asks in them, and the one you had a very quick turnaround after with our follow-up meeting that was referred regarding the sewer. That was excellent. Did great turnaround time, and I was surprised that you had time to throw that together for us, but it was really good.
Okay, so can you take that under advisement, then some review process where we could compare notes?
Can I just a little further? Besides the ministers' meetings, I attended the asset management and long-term financial planning one on Tuesday morning, which was very interesting, and it just reaffirms what the CAO has been saying about having to, we need to start setting up reserves. And this just really stressed it. There is something that I was going to talk to you about, which we won't go into right now, but we missed most of the small communities because of ministers' meetings, so we didn't get a lot into that. And I attended the session on the impacts of the Chilcotin decision on local governments. That was, it could be very interesting for the whole province, depending with other bands decide to file claims, since this one was successful, because their title is, the one thing that they did make very clear is that the Aboriginal title is a far stronger form of title than ours, which is a fee simple title. So it's going to have big impacts on local governments. Attended the MIABC AGM, and another session on Wednesday called Who's Picking Up the Tab? And that was a study done by the Columbia Institute about downloading from, federal government to provincial government and municipal government. And they said part of it was municipalities actually taking that role on, because people are used to being provided with those services, and it doesn't matter to them because there's only one taxpayer. But if it doesn't happen at the federal level than it used to, or the provincial level, people still want those services, so they will ask their municipality. So which means that, you know, the municipal governments are the ones that are, you know, most readily available to people. You can't really go to your provincial government rep and say, well, why did you do that?
Yeah.
But if you have to raise taxes at a local level, you know who to go and yell at. So it does make it very difficult. But like I said, it was very interesting, and there was I had a discussion with a couple of different people from the BC Assessment Authority, which were very interesting. And the one gentleman offered to come and talk to us about the process they go through and some of the innovative ways they have without actually visiting your community to find out whether people have, for instance, added swimming pools and hadn't applied for building permits because they've got sort of like, I can't remember whether it's sort of like a drone that they could, it measures reflections. There wasn't one 2 years ago, and there is one now. You've got a pool if you haven't bought a building permit. So yeah, there was some very interesting stuff. Yeah. I think that might be worthwhile.
Yeah.
I could just add that at the Small Talk Forum, there was a big ministerial announcement about the formation of the council based on the Rural BC project, which was initiated by the three BACs. And my understanding was the BACs had a meeting with Christy Clark, and she's supporting this effort. She will appoint 12 individuals to be on that council, and for rural British Columbia. And there's a dearth of documents and initiatives there, but one of the most interesting ones that gets discussed is the rural dividend. In other words, how do we get our share from mining royalties, stumpage, things of that. So that's a work in progress, and it'll be interesting to see how well financed it is. That's the thing. But the other one was on the assessment authority too. Neil and I both discussed the fact that the assessment for the airport is pretty ragged. But because we don't pay any taxes on it, they don't really care. But we've got very high property assessments for areas that airplanes are flying over that you couldn't build on. So they recognize that, but that's a special case, so we would have to go to the local and say, look, we want these properties reassessed to find out what their real value is, because you can't build anything within the airspace. They don't do that many airports, so they don't have. Any other? No.
Can I just ask you, for the benefit of the public, to explain what the BACs are? Because I don't think most people won't know what a BAC is.
Yeah, well, it's the Beetle Action Committees that were formed and funded for the last 6 years, I believe. And so it'll be interesting to see if they continue to function, or they'll be rolled into this rural council. Okay. Now, I said bylaws, so
I'll move that bylaw 1161, a bylaw to amend bylaw enforcement, ticket information, bylaw number 1037, be read first time by content.
Second.
moved by Councillor Leithwood, seconded by Councillor Hewitt. Discussion, call the question, all in favor, motion passes.
I'll move that that bylaw 1161, a bylaw to amend the bylaw enforcement ticket information bylaw 1037 be read a second and third time by title.
Moved by Councillor Hewitt, seconded by Councillor Lang. Discussion, call the question, all in favor, motion passes. Is there any discussion concerning the RCMP's comments here?
I think it's great, though.
Okay. We finished with the 8s then? Okay, new business, 9A, a notice of motion by Councillor Lang.
Okay, I'll just read these motions out and we'll see if we get a second or not. before we get launched into any discussion. The first motion, notice motion is that staff be directed to write a letter to the Valley Voice identifying estimated tax impacts and road jurisdictional changes with respect to the proposed boundary expansion.
I'll second for discussion.
Second for discussion.
So I'm just wondering if it's appropriate for the village to reply in that manner. I mean, we're initiating it on because of a previous letter. So is it typical for a council to respond in that way?
As long as it was, I was directed to do it, or staff was directed to do it, and it's basically based on our own information we put together ourselves without any further referral to council, I suppose it would work. There's no need to do it, but I can certainly put a letter together or notice.
Councillor Lane.
Okay, I got a couple comments I'd like to make. First of all, the timing of this letter was of some concern to me in that it appeared just prior to the closing of the AAP process and really didn't give council a chance to respond. I think there were some inaccuracies contained in the letter that could have had an impact on the outcome of the process, although clearly based on the results we received, it did not. So, but I think it's important that, I mean, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but facts are facts, and I think in this particular matter there was implications made that simply are not true. And going ahead, moving forward with this boundary expansion, which we will be dealing with in the next little while, I think it's important that we stick to what we know to be true, not to speculate on what could be or what might be down the road, but just deal specifically with what is actually taking place.
Councillor Hall.
Yeah, the fact that I put in there 20, that was I did the calculations, I brought them for a copy for the city. And I came up with 22%, and I ran this by the CAO and had him look at it early on. You might remember this thing, you know, this big giant. I did the calculations. I came in and I got tax statements. I crunched all the numbers, and after he kind of verified my data, it came up to closer to 25%. So that is not a number that I made up. It's a number that was verified by the office. And the second fact around the road maintenance, we just got $70,000 from the regional district to upgrade that road. If that road was within the boundaries of the municipality, they couldn't do that because they can't go around paving and improving roads in the municipalities. They can do that in their own areas. They would never do that inside the municipal boundary. They can't. It's just that would set a terrible precedent for them. They'd have people all over the place saying, "Come fix our road too." So those are significant impacts. And the letter was not a fiery statement to sway anybody in one direction or other, really, other than to provide some basic facts. And the basic facts are the taxes will go up on those properties. The taxes in the municipality are much higher than they are in the regional district. The range is from, as you can see, 18% for the person that has a property up there that's worth $171,000. His taxes will go up 18%. For the property that's not worth as much at $72,500, his taxes will go up 22%. I've got the tax sheets here if you want to. These are the tax statements from each property that I referenced are here. So the information is really accurate, and I've brought the file for you to review so you can see that. And the maintenance of the road is pretty straightforward. The rest was actually a call. It was mainly a call to try to get the community engaged, because my perception was that the community was not at all aware and up to speed of what was going on around the AAP. And my main point was to get the word out a little bit beyond the two little advertisements that were ran that really didn't engage the community very well at all. And it was another opportunity that I spoke to before in a previous letter I wrote around trying to generate more community engagement and knowledge of what we're doing. We're sorely lacking getting the word out around what our activities are and what we're doing here at council. And I think it's important that as council we work to do that. I stated in there very clearly, I was not expressing anything to do with around what council's position was or the village of Kaslo's position was. I stated it very clearly, it was my opinion. And in my opinion, as councilors, I think we would probably be better off if we did speak up a little bit more in polite, measured kind of ways around what our opinions are versus what council's direction is. I'm not going to, it's my personal opinion that there's better ways to improve the property up there than annexing the property, but I'm not going to turn this into, I have no intent of turning this into a big issue. My main thrust was to engage the community, try to get some information out, and hopefully maybe get some people to become more knowledgeable about what the village was doing.
Councilor.
I guess the comment I would make is that that is why we have those public processes, right? So that we can stand as a council and give those kind of facts out. And I know that you did state in the letter that it was your opinion, but when you write a letter as a councillor, or because we've ran into this before, people feel that's the stance of council. So I think we need to be really careful. I can understand why you were wanting to do that, but I think there's processes in place where we already do that. And so once we put those kind of things in the media, as an individual person, it puts council in a kind of precarious position, I think. I mean, again, I think the idea of what you were trying to do was good, because you're right, public engagement is something that we struggle with all the time. And people don't get the information because they don't avail of themselves, but, perhaps that's the best way to do it.
I'm open to hearing better ways to expressing our opinions. I think that our opinions are critical and important to the public.
I do too, but I think that's
Councilor.
what
Oh, sorry. Councilor.
Well, I'm going to bring it back to the subject, which is whether we're going to have staff write this letter. I'm actually going to oppose it because we've discussed earlier tonight about not doing certain things because time constraints for staff. That's my only concern, and it's late in the game for us to be putting something like this together, which is it an attempt to rebut what the Councillor Holland put in as an individual? I just don't know whether it's an effective use of staff time at a time when staffing is not at its ultimate, its optimum level. That's the only reason I would oppose the motion.
Further discussion?
I'll speak a second time and I'll get back. Excuse me for getting off track there. If I got it, I didn't read it too late. I would have talked to you personally about it. I would be pleased to have staff state the implications around it because I think would be that. But I will speak against the motion also because involving staff in any kind of exchanges and interchanges where personal opinions are being expressed by a council member is not appropriate. It puts them in a really awkward position. It's great to ask them for data and facts, and those data and facts will be supplied to council, and then we have two options there. Either council can write a letter and state wherever they want, or an individual councilor can take that information as I did and write a letter about it. But instructing staff to do that, I think it is, I'm trying to find the right word, it's very inappropriate, very inappropriate. So I'm going to speak against the motion.
Councilor Lane?
Well, I don't think it's inappropriate at all in that I don't think it's incumbent on any one of us to respond. I think what we're saying is we as a council need to identify what the truth of the matter is and then instruct staff to put our findings into a letter that would then be published. We're not asking staff to create a document based on their research. It's up to us to make that decision. So I don't think it's inappropriate that staff be directed to do this, but I do understand Councillor Hewitt's concern about the fact that we are understaffed at this point in time, and that there are possibly more pressing issues out there that need to be addressed. But basically, I just like to go with what Councillor Leithwood said, that I think it's important when we went into this boundary expansion as a group, we voted on it in favor of going down this road. We followed all the, we crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's, and we supported it as a group, and I'd like to see us stay cohesive on this issue through to the end of the process. If we're going to split off and go in different directions on it, that's one thing. But otherwise, I think we need to stay focused, keep our eye on the prize of what we're trying to accomplish here and the reasons why, and move ahead. So,
would there be any room for staff? This isn't a complicated thing, in my opinion, for staff to state the facts on the website. Councillor Leithwood?
But we also have one more public hearing.
No.
I thought you said there was one more.
No, there's an advertisement that will be going to the BC Gazette.
Oh, the BC Gazette.
Yeah. And the resolution, recommended resolutions or required resolutions come back to you on the 14th.
The 14th of
October.
Further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Record my vote in favor. Opposed? Motion fails. Oop, shit. And your second motion?
that electoral area directors of the regional district of Central Kootenai be advised that they should use standard channels of formal communication if they wish to engage in critiques of municipal policy, resolutions, or bylaws with council or staff.
Second by Councilor for discussion.
Yeah.
This stems out of an email I'm sure that you all saw where Director Shedler was critiquing our CAO over his application or our commitment to the MMBC process. And I found the comments inappropriate. It's not the right way to engage with council on this matter. It's a complicated issue, MMBC, and I don't think there's any good guys or bad guys in this argument. I think there's lots of different ways of looking at it. We as a council made the best decision we could at the time with the information we had in front of us. I'm not ashamed of that decision. I think it's still, to this day, the right decision. But I do take strong exception to the comments made in those emails. And this debate via email thing is really worrisome to me because it opens up a whole can of worms, because who knows who's getting the emails, who knows who's seeing the emails, and who knows, I think you get the picture. Anyway, that's
So it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Councillor.
So is this a motion that will be further forward to the regional district?
No, I don't think it can be.
What did you say, Neil?
Yeah.
It goes to the regional district.
I guess,
Councillor Holland.
I agree with what you're trying to do here in principle, because I would sort of, I agree that some of the language in some of the emails was not as respectful as it could be. I agree. But this smacks of sort of trying to muzzle area directors in their relationships if they're not formal. What is channels of formal communication would be that they would make they're not to make public comments on municipal policies, resolutions, or bylaws. They're only to communicate directly with councils. Is that the intent of this?
Absolutely. I mean, I think they're no different than the public at large. If somebody in the public has an issue with a decision we make, the first step is to approach the CAO and ask if there is a delegation before council and express their concerns. That's the way we operate. We don't, it's not a backroom organization. I mean, if somebody's got a concern over what we're doing, they need to approach us, get put on as a delegation, write a letter, do whatever they feel like doing. But they got to work through official channels, not circumvent council and snipe at us from via emails that are directed to whoever, whenever. I think it's a totally valid point of view to ask people to follow standard channels of formal communication.
And I'd just like to add that this, placed our CAO in a very difficult situation, and I don't want to see him placed in that situation. It's really not where he should be. He tries his best to accommodate people. He meets with people. But when emails are flying around, then, I think we're probably in an area where, we're going to get quoted on those emails rather than get face-to-face and try to resolve the issue if there is an issue, rather than fire off an email. So that's just my comments and thoughts on it. So any further discussion? Ready for the question? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Did you vote? Motion passes.
Okay, and the third motion is appointment of council as director to the regional district, as director to the regional district secretary. Rescinded.
Seconder for the motion? No seconder for the motion. Motion fails. Okay, now we have a travel request.
I'll move that Director Holland be approved to travel to the 2014 Columbia River Basin Conference expenses pursuant to municipal policy.
Seconder? Second by Councilor Hewitt. Discussion?
Yeah, just very quickly, I guess back in 2016, I went to one of the first Columbia River Basin conferences. 2006, back in the future. 2006, and what came out of that was a huge learning experience around the International Joint Commission on Freeway Controls and fighting for a solid year at the regional district to get Kaslo recognized as an affected area from the reservoir operations here. And that ultimately led, after digging it out in the regional district, getting the Community Development Fund established, which benefited all municipalities in the region around getting that grant. So I'm anxious to get back down there and keep our information lines full and well documented up to speed what's going on with that. There's a lot going on with the Conservation Trust and Columbia River Treaty. So I thank council for sending me down there, and I'll give you a good report.
And I want to compliment councilors. What was it? What were you going to go to? But not enough people signed up.
It was about the women, trying to get women in politics. The FCM has there was three
for
or
the
four.
thing in Grand Forks.
Yes, yeah.
Are you kidding? I tried to get my daughter. Anyway, I just want to compliment councilors because we got to get the word out there about our community, and that's about 20% of it. The other 80% is networking with knowledgeable people and comparing thoughts and ideas. And I get a little bit concerned when people don't want to have our councilors on these various committees. And every year there's more committees. I know myself, but it's important because as rural communities, the more we collaborate and work together, the better chance we've got of bringing forth positive and effective change. So I'm glad that Councillor Holland's going down to this one. It's a rather important one. Okay. And the accounts payable.
I'll move the accounts payable in the amount of $98,654.60. $2,061 be approved for payment.
Seconded by Councilor Lang. Discussion, call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. No financial report. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll move to adjourn.
Moved by Councilor Lee. All in favor? Thank you, Council.